They say scars never really fade in a small town, especially when the past walks on four legs. When Deputy Adam Carlyle met the eyes of a wounded German shepherd at dawn, nothing could prepare him for the silent plea buried in that dog's gaze, or the storm it would unleash. What would you do if a single act of kindness could cost you everything? As rumors spiral, loyalties are tested, and a secret from the fire comes to light, one question remains. If you had to choose between letting go and standing by, which would you risk? Your heart or your peace? Tell us, what would you have done? Share your thoughts below. Before the sky could decide between black and blue, Deputy Adam Carlyle drove the long way to work, headlights sweeping through low, wet mist that pooled on the edges of the old state road. It was a habit now, these detours, these circuits that never quite led him in a straight line to the station. The routine was a kind of silent ritual. Cross the north fields, pass the ancient water tower, and stop just for a moment at the iron bridge over the Swatara River. The world was empty there, not yet awake, except for the insistent chorus of crickets and the slow, ceaseless murmur of water below. Adam always left the engine running, the heat thrumming quietly in the patrol car. He'd sit for 5 minutes, sometimes 10, one hand curled around the cracked steering wheel, the other turning over an old brass lighter in his pocket. The lighter had belonged to his brother. His name, Samuel, engraved on one side, almost rubbed smooth now by years of nervous fidgeting. Adam had stopped smoking years ago, but the lighter never left his hand on mornings like this. He rolled down the window and let the chill drift in. Somewhere far off, a dog barked. 2 short bursts, then silence. Adam breathed out and watched the condensation bloom and fade. In these dawn hours, Lebanon, Pennsylvania felt like a place suspended in amber. Cornfields bristled on both sides of the river, leaves glistening with dew, the silence of a small town before it remembered its own wounds. He never lingered for long. Duty pressed, even if nothing waited at the station but paperwork and the same tired jokes from dispatch. But today, as Adam turned to start the engine, he caught a flash of movement in his side mirror, a figure on the bridge, backlit by the pale gray of morning. A man walked slowly, dragging his left leg, one arm yanking at something heavy just behind. Adam squinted. Not something. Someone. No, a dog. A large German shepherd. Coat muddied and unkempt, ribs showing faintly through fur that might have once been proud. The man's jacket was torn at the sleeve. His boots left smeared trails across the damp planks of the bridge. Even from a distance, Adam saw that the leash wasn't store-bought, but a length of knotted rope, frayed, tight enough to leave a line in the dog's neck. He killed the headlights and let the engine idle. There was nothing illegal here, not really. Stray dogs weren't unusual in Lebanon, not after the last mill closed and the shelters filled up. But something about the way the shepherd moved, the slump of its broad shoulders, the way it limped ever so slightly with its left front paw, drew Adam in. He watched as the man paused at the center of the bridge, looking over the edge into the water far below, one hand gripping the rope tighter, as if weighing something heavy in his mind. For a long moment, nothing happened. The river moved under them both, carrying secrets from upstream, old farm stories, broken fences, small-town guilt. Adam's radio crackled, a voice from dispatch drifting in with the static, but he ignored it. He opened his door, stepped out into the cold, boots scraping the gravel, and made his way slowly toward the bridge. Every step felt louder than it should have. The morning was thin-skinned, everything echoing. The shepherd's head snapped up, ears pricking. It didn't bark, only stared, unmoving. There was no wag, no tail-thumping excitement. Just a dog frozen in a moment of uncertainty, shoulders braced, eyes dark and watchful, as if waiting for some unspoken signal. Adam stopped a few yards away, careful not to make sudden moves. He saw the man now, face gaunt, eyes shadowed, lips pressed tight in a line that spoke of hunger and nights spent outdoors. There was something raw in the man's posture, a hardness that came from too many locked doors, too many things lost. He didn't look at Adam, just tugged the rope again, harder. The shepherd whimpered, so soft Adam barely heard it. "Early for a walk," Adam said, voice low, more observation than greeting. The man grunted, not meeting his eyes. He pulled at the rope, trying to force the dog forward. But the shepherd set its feet, muscles tensed. Adam watched the struggle, the silent, weary battle between brute force and a stubborn kind of hope. For a moment, Adam glimpsed something in the shepherd's gaze. Not defiance, not fear. A kind of mute plea, a silent flare of recognition that made his heart slow. The dog's eyes, deep brown, met his, and Adam saw himself reflected back, tired, frayed, but not yet broken. Then, as the man jerked the rope with sudden violence, the dog lunged, not toward Adam but away, straining backward, fighting the pull. The man cursed under his breath, stumbled, and nearly lost his grip. Adam stepped closer, hands out, palms open. "He's not hurting anyone," he said quietly, almost to himself. The man hesitated. For a second, he looked as though he might say something sharp or pleading or angry, but instead he yanked the rope again and with a final curse dragged the shepherd down the bridge toward the far side. The dog's claws scraped the old iron, body twisting in protest. As they disappeared into the early fog, Adam noticed it. A pale, jagged scar cutting across the dog's left shoulder, fur grown thin around the old wound. He'd seen that kind of scar before, in a news clipping about a fire years ago, in a different county, with a dog they'd called a hero. Adam stood motionless on the bridge, the river cold and endless beneath his feet. His hand closed around his brother's lighter in his pocket. A question gnawed at him, half memory, half fear. He watched the mist swallow the man and the dog, but the scar, that scar stayed with him, long after the bridge emptied, long after the world began again. As the man yanked the leash, the German shepherd wrenched back, and Adam caught the glimpse of that familiar scar on its shoulder, impossible to forget. A story long dormant began to stir, threading old wounds with new. Adam didn't tell anyone what he saw on the bridge. He drove back into Lebanon as the sun began to fight through the morning haze, painting the cornfields with a weak, cold light. All the way to the station, he thought about the shepherd, the hollow in its gaze, the scar on its shoulder, the man's face set hard against the world. Adam knew that kind of face. Well, he'd seen it in mirrors before, and sometimes in old family photos when his father drank too much and the grief came loose around the dinner table. It should have been just another day. Lebanon wasn't a place that asked for much. A few traffic tickets, a noise complaint, a lost wallet handed in at the diner. Adam spent his shift in silence, barely listening to the radio. He checked the window every hour, half expecting to see that same man and dog pass by on the sidewalk, two ghosts drifting the periphery of everyone else's normal life. Evening fell slow and heavy, the kind of dusk that sits low on the shoulders. Adam clocked out just after dark, boots scuffing across the battered tile, the station air tinged with old coffee and disinfectant. He left by the side door and sat for a moment on the steps, hands braced on his knees, eyes on the distant shimmer of the river. That was when he saw them again. Down near the old auto lot on the edge of town, just a scatter of rusting chassis and broken glass, weeds climbing through everything. Adam watched the man dragging the shepherd toward the back fence. There was no one else around. Streetlights hadn't worked there in years. The darkness pooled thickly, swallowing sound. Adam moved without thinking. He slipped through the alley, staying in the shadows. He kept his badge in his pocket. Some situations demanded silence, not authority. Near the far end of the lot, the man stopped and twisted the rope tighter around his wrist. He looked over his shoulder, checking for eyes that weren't there. Adam kept still, breath shallow. He could hear the shepherd panting, low and rough. Suddenly, the man barked out a word, a hoarse, guttural command. "Attack!" Adam froze. The single word ricocheted off the dead cars and crumpled tin. The shepherd tensed, muscles rippling under the dirt-matted fur. For an instant, it looked like it might spring. Adam braced himself, half expecting claws and teeth. But the dog only stood there. It didn't lunge. Its whole body trembled, not with rage but with confusion, with pain. Its head turned, eyes seeking something or someone it could trust. The man shouted again, louder, voice cracking on the command. "Attack! Go on!" Still nothing. The shepherd shifted its weight, tail low, hackles half raised, but the snarl died in its throat. Instead, it met Adam's gaze, eyes wide and pleading, a flicker of something ancient and half-remembered, the old ghost of training meeting the new reality of being lost. Adam stepped forward, very slow, arms open at his sides. He tried not to think about the possibility of violence. He only watched the dog's every breath, the quiver of its ears. The man spat on the ground. "Stupid mutt," he muttered, voice thick with something sour and tired. He turned away, tugging at the rope, but the shepherd resisted, legs planted. There was a tense, drawn-out moment, a standoff in miniature, nothing grand, just a contest of will between a man running out of options and a dog who remembered something other than fear. That's when Adam saw the collar, faded leather, cracked and weathered, the metal tag bent, almost unreadable. In the glare of a nearby car's headlight, he caught a single letter on the tag. A J. Faint, scratched, but there. His heart thudded once, sharp and loud. He remembered a photograph from years ago, newsprint faded, a headline about a fire, a dog named Jasper who'd saved 3 lives before vanishing. The image came back to him now. The same eyes, the same scar, the faint mark on the tag. The man yanked the leash again. "Let's go," he growled, as if anger could fill the empty places in his life. The shepherd whined, low and shuddering, but followed. Not by choice, but by the slow defeat that comes to all creatures who've been owned and abandoned too many times. Adam didn't follow right away. He stayed in the shadow of a stripped Buick, hands shaking, breath caught between memory and regret. In the thick, metallic night air, the weight of old stories pressed down. How many times had Adam himself been given orders he couldn't bear to follow? How many times had he chosen silence over action? He looked down at his palms, felt the rough skin, scars of old work, old shame. He could have stepped in, made an arrest, flashed a badge, written a report, but something deeper kept him still. Not fear, something harder, the knowledge that people and dogs are changed by what's been done to them, that sometimes the only thing left is to wait for the moment when the old story cracks open and something wild and honest escapes. He walked back to his car, the image of the shepherd burning behind his eyelids. Tonight, Adam would not sleep. The J on the collar, the wordless plea in the shepherd's eyes, the scar. All of it left him with a question, sharp and unsparing. If given the order to destroy, would you obey? Or would you remember something better? He didn't know the answer yet. But he knew the story had not ended on that dark, abandoned lot. As Adam caught the faint J on Jasper's battered collar, memory collided with present fear. The rescue dog from years ago, the hero vanished after fire. Was he now here, forced into the hands of someone who'd forgotten what rescue means? A question with no answer yet, pulling Adam deeper into the night, into his own unfinished hurt. After the night at the auto lot, Adam found himself carrying the silence everywhere. He didn't talk about it, not at the station, not to his father, not even in the safety of his own apartment. He kept the image of the battered shepherd in his mind, the sound of the wordless whine, the way the animal had pressed itself backward against the pull of the leash. Lebanon's mornings came in slow and gray. A thin layer of frost coated the porch rails and the mailbox, turning the whole town into a place paused between seasons. The only sounds were the faint hiss of tires on wet pavement and the distant crow of a rooster in a backyard where laundry never seemed to come down from the line. Adam spent his morning driving the back roads, circling the fields, unwilling to face paperwork or idle talk. His mind returned, again and again, to the dog's eyes, a look that seemed to pierce straight through him, as if asking for a language older than command. He stopped at a corner store for black coffee and a donut he barely tasted, scanning the street from behind the fogged glass. Somewhere out there, Jasper was living out another day, chained to a stranger's life, or maybe lost again already. It was mid-morning before Adam finally steered his cruiser toward the bridge. The mist had started to burn off, turning the river silver, like the world was waking up with a headache. He parked the car a little further off this time, not wanting to draw attention. As he walked, each step felt heavier, as if the air itself remembered last night's fear. At the far end of the bridge, half hidden in the shadow of the iron girders, sat the shepherd. Alone. The rope was missing now, either dropped or chewed through, but the dog wore the battered collar still, head low, eyes locked on the water. Adam approached carefully. He didn't speak, didn't even clear his throat. He simply moved to the rail and stood, hands in his pockets, staring out at the river with the same deadpan focus he brought to all his hardest days. Minutes passed. The dog didn't move. Adam glanced down and saw the thick mat of Jasper's fur, streaked with mud and something darker, soot, maybe, or the stubborn residue of old fire. On the shepherd's broad shoulder, the scar was raw and unmistakable. A memory rose, unbidden, a newspaper clipping from years back. A photo of a German shepherd, head held high despite the chaos of charred trees behind him, eyes full of something that looked like stubbornness and hope in equal measure. Adam eased himself down to sit beside the dog, slow and deliberate, letting his body settle into the cold metal. He didn't offer a hand, didn't try to coax or comfort. Instead, he let silence build between them, like a bridge, Jean. The only sound was the river and the slow, careful breathing of two creatures who knew what it meant to wait. Jasper shifted, just enough for his paw to brush Adam's boot. It was nothing and everything. Adam looked down, saw the paw, thick, battered, with a patch of fur missing. The dog was close enough to touch, but there was no wag, no sigh of relief, no rush of reunion. Instead, there was a hard, almost wary stillness, as if both man and dog understood the cost of trust. A gust of wind swept across the bridge, sending a swirl of brown leaves tumbling across the metal planks. Jasper watched them go, ears pricking for a moment before falling flat again. He let out a long, low sigh, and Adam thought he could smell something sharp in the fur, a bitter, smoky tang. He leaned in, squinting. There, deep in the coat near Jasper's shoulder, were specks of blackened ash. Not dirt, not mud, but the unmistakable remnants of fire. Adam swallowed, the memory settling deeper. He thought about the fire that had made the papers, how it had swept through 2 towns over, how rescue teams had worked for days, and how the headline dog had vanished after the last victim was saved. He'd clipped that story out, back when he still believed in miracles. The shepherd in the photo had worn a red collar, the J shining bright. The dog beside him now wore the same mark, only dulled by time and pain. Adam reached into his pocket, fingers closing on his brother's lighter. He didn't know what made him do it. Maybe habit, maybe memory. But he turned the lighter in his palm, feeling the weight of the past as if it were an object he could pass from hand to hand. He didn't speak, but in the small, careful movement, a man holding on to what little warmth he had left, a dog not shying away. There was the barest hint of something thawing. The moment stretched, neither comfort nor resolution, just 2 creatures breathing together on the edge of old wounds. A pigeon landed a few feet away, pecking at a patch of sunlight, oblivious to the history that hung in the cold air. Adam exhaled, long and slow, letting the pain of not knowing become a part of the bridge, part of the morning. He wondered what it would take for trust to return, what stories had to be told, without words, for a dog to let down its guard, and a man to forgive the parts of himself that could not be saved. Jasper rested his chin on Adam's boot, not in surrender, but in a kind of exhausted truce. The sun was higher now, warming the bridge in slow increments, giving shape to the shadows beneath their feet. There would be no happy ending written today, just the silent company of 2 survivors, the river carrying their secrets away, and a small, stubborn hope that maybe, with time, wounds could become something softer. Adam, noticing the flecks of ash and soot in Jasper's fur, realizes the connection is not coincidence. The dog before him bears the marks, inside and out, of a past fire that once made headlines, and which left both man and animal haunted, but alive. A new question takes root. How many scars can a survivor carry before the world sees them as more than just damaged? The day after their silent truce on the bridge, Lebanon was thick with autumn. The trees burned gold and rust along the narrow streets, and the air had that crisp, metallic edge that made the townspeople talk about winter too early, as if by naming it, they could keep the cold at bay a little longer. Adam parked his cruiser behind the station, wanting as always to slip through the side door, away from the crowd of uniforms and civilian chatter. But word traveled fast in small towns, and by mid-morning, everyone seemed to have heard about the stray shepherd shadowing his steps. Some of the older officers joked about Adam's new partner, but the humor was thin and brittle, hiding the discomfort underneath. Rumors clung to the walls like old smoke. In the corner of the break room, he heard two dispatchers whispering, "That's the dog they say bit old Mr. Ferris out by the mill road, isn't it?" Not the first time either. The Johnson kids saw him snap at a cyclist last week. Probably feral, probably dangerous. Adam sipped his bitter coffee and said nothing, staring through the frosted window, watching a leaf spiral down onto the empty sidewalk. Outside, he found Jasper curled in the shadow of the building, pressed flat against the concrete, eyes half closed. The dog's ears twitched at Adam's approach, but he didn't get up. There was no bark of greeting, only the slow rise and fall of his breath, a living contradiction. Powerful, but defeated. Adam crouched nearby, just out of reach. He took a slow, careful look at Jasper's collar, as if the answer to everything might be carved into its battered leather. He noticed a small, faded mark on the inside, a set of letters and numbers, nearly worn away by time and weather. Adam ran his thumb over it. PART07. He recognized the format. It was the kind of identification used by the Pennsylvania rescue teams, the units called in for wildfires and natural disasters. He'd seen collars like that before, on TV, in grainy rescue footage, on dogs pulled out of floods and fire. But Jasper's was different. The tag was crudely notched, as if someone had tried to scratch out the history, erase it. He glanced up at the windows. Inside, he saw a few faces turned toward him, peering through blinds, shaking their heads, turning away. Outside, the wind picked up. A newspaper tumbled across the parking lot, smacking against a trash can. Adam reached into his pocket, but found only the lighter, the old talisman he carried everywhere, cold and useless now. He wanted to take Jasper inside, give him shelter, maybe food, maybe a place to belong. But there were rules, and rules built walls. So he did what he could. He fetched an old blanket from the trunk of his car, laid it down on the dry patch beneath the back stairs, and left a bowl of water beside it. Jasper didn't move until Adam stepped away, then slowly, almost apologetically, shifted onto the blanket and rested his head on his paws. Inside, the phone rang and rang. By noon, the rumors had grown teeth. Someone called from the east side, complaining about a big dark dog lurking near the playground, scaring children. Another said a stray matching Jasper's description had been seen near the high school dumpster, digging like he was looking for trouble. The stories multiplied, each retelling making the shepherd a little bigger, a little wilder, a little less like the dog Adam had met on the bridge. Adam worked through the afternoon in a fog. He tried searching the old archives on his department computer, scrolling through faded police reports and incident files. The official record of the wildfire from years before was there. Buried under bureaucratic dust, 3 civilians rescued, 1 firefighter lost, and a canine named Jasper listed as missing, presumed dead. A grainy photo showed a younger, unscarred shepherd, head held proud, eyes wide, coat unblemished by ash or memory. He closed the file and leaned back, listening to the hum of the air conditioning. He thought about Jasper, waiting outside in the wind, bearing the weight of stories he couldn't defend himself against. When Adam left for the night, the sun was slipping behind the silo, sky bruised purple. He found Jasper still curled on the blanket, shivering a little, but not from cold. There was a watchfulness in the dog's posture, as if every movement might bring a blow or a command. Adam sat with him in the deepening dusk. He pulled the blanket up over Jasper's shoulders, feeling the tremor in the thick fur, a vibration that wasn't just from the chill, but from months, maybe years, of uncertainty and betrayal. Down the street, a group of teenagers biked past, yelling and laughing. One of them saw the shepherd and spat on the sidewalk, shouting, "Keep your monster away from here!" Adam kept his eyes on Jasper, not answering, not moving. The town would judge. That was its nature. But for now, Adam was content to sit, letting the quiet gather, the streetlights flickering on one by one, washing the concrete in cold orange glow. Inside the precinct, voices rose, debates about strays, about safety, about what should be done. Outside, under a sky thick with stars and silence, Adam and Jasper shared the only kind of peace left to them, the comfort of company, and the knowledge that, for tonight at least, neither one would be left entirely alone. As Adam brushed the dog's fur, his fingers traced the faint, near-erased code of the Pennsylvania rescue team, evidence that Jasper's past was more than rumor, more than fear. But in the hush outside the precinct, the stories inside grew sharper, and Adam realized that surviving in this town meant fighting not just for a dog, but for the memory of everything he once believed was worth saving. Night pressed hard against the town, soaking everything in a sheet of cold rain. Lebanon was a place where storms felt personal, as if the sky wanted to scrub the old brick and cracked pavement clean. Streetlights shivered in the downpour, throwing broken halos across the narrow roads. Most people stayed inside, curtains drawn tight, listening to weather warnings on the radio and hoping the power wouldn't fail. But the phone at the station rang anyway, sharp as a siren, a break-in at the old auto lot. It was the kind of call Adam had grown used to, teenagers with nowhere to go, a stray cat, sometimes only the wind banging open a door. Still, habit sent him out. He buttoned his jacket, pulled the hood low, and stepped into the teeth of the storm. He glanced once toward the dark side of the lot, knowing somehow that Jasper would follow. Rain hammered the cruiser as he drove. The wipers could barely keep up, blurring the world into streaks of black and yellow. He parked on the edge of the lot, killed the engine, and sat for a moment, breathing, listening. Thunder rumbled, close and mean. He saw no movement, but the sense of something waiting was unmistakable. A flash of lightning revealed the shape of a man by the rusted fence. Tall, shoulders hunched, a baseball cap pulled low. At his feet, Jasper stood, stiff and wary, ears pinned back. Adam got out, leaving the car door open, letting the dome light cut a small patch of gold through the rain. The man turned as Adam approached, eyes shadowed, jaw set. "Back off," he called, voice already lost in the storm. He held a length of pipe in one hand. Behind him, two other figures moved, faces hidden beneath cheap rain ponchos. Adam kept his hands loose at his sides, every muscle tensed, aware of how alone he was out here. He saw the man glance down at Jasper, then jerk the rope hard. "Attack!" The word came out as a growl, heavy with old rage. Jasper froze, body rigid. For an instant, Adam saw only fear. The dog caught between instinct and command, a trembling mass of power and memory. The two other men stepped forward, one holding a crowbar, the other fumbling in his jacket for something Adam couldn't see. The world shrank to the sound of the rain, the creak of metal, the shallow, desperate breath of a dog torn in half. "Jasper," Adam whispered, the name almost lost. "It's okay." The man with the pipe sneered. Stupid mutt doesn't know who feeds him. All he knows is pain. He raised the pipe, stepping toward Adam. Jasper whined, a sound that didn't belong in a dog so large, so strong. He backed away from the man, moving toward Adam, slow, uncertain. The storm surged, wind whipping the leash sideways. The second figure lunged, swinging the crowbar. In a blur, almost not a decision, more a reflex born of months of hunger and the echo of older, kinder training, Jasper launched himself forward. But not at Adam. At the man with the pipe. A howl split the rain. Jasper's body slammed into the attacker's legs, knocking him off balance. The pipe clattered to the ground, rolling into a puddle. The third man, startled, stumbled back, tripping over a coil of wire and falling into the mud. Adam drew his flashlight, aiming the beam at the scuffle. He didn't yell, didn't threaten. He only moved, fast and silent, hands steady as he crossed the slick ground to reach Jasper and the man. The first attacker writhed, cursing, trying to shove the dog away. Jasper held fast, not biting, only pinning him down, the rumble in his throat raw and relentless. Blood streamed from a cut above the man's eyebrow, mixed with rain and dirt. The other two fled, disappearing into the storm without a backward glance. Adam reached out, his hand shaking. He put his palm on Jasper's side, feeling the tremor of adrenaline and fear. "It's over," he said, not sure if the words were meant for the dog or himself. Jasper stepped back, favoring his left leg. The fur at his shoulder was matted with blood, a fresh wound, split open where the pipe had grazed him. He limped to Adam's side and sat, shivering, head hung low. Adam knelt, ignoring the rain soaking his jeans, and touched Jasper's head, gently tracing the scar beneath his fur. He breathed in the smell, wet dog, blood, the acrid tang of iron and burnt hair. For a long time, the only sound was rain. No one spoke. No one ran. There was just the small, steady rhythm of survival, two living beings holding the line against the night. Police backup came late, as it always did. By the time the cruisers arrived, Adam was sitting in the mud. Jasper pressed close against him, the attacker moaning quietly, hands cuffed behind his back. The paramedic who cleaned Jasper's wound looked at Adam with something like pity, then pressed a roll of gauze into his hand. "You're lucky," she said softly. Adam nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Later, when the parking lot emptied, Adam stayed behind. He spread his jacket across the back seat, lifted Jasper in, awkwardly, gently, feeling the full weight of the animal settle against him. He drove through the rain, slow, careful, the wipers still losing to the storm. When they reached home, he laid a towel by the door. Jasper limped inside, collapsed beside Adam's boots, and let out a long, shuddering sigh. Adam sat beside him on the floor, head bowed, eyes burning with the truth. Sometimes courage wasn't a leap or a roar, but a slow, wounded return to trust. In the cold quiet of his apartment, Adam finally saw it. Among the blood and mud on Jasper's fur were flecks of something black, ash, the kind that clings for years, the kind that marks survivors as both miracle and burden. In that fragile silence, man and dog both realized, the only thing more powerful than fear is the choice to stand between danger and someone who needs you, even if it means being hurt again. Rain lingered through the night, tapping the window glass in slow, irregular rhythms. The apartment was small, one bedroom, the paint scuffed and peeling in the corners, the heat coming in fits and starts from an old radiator that never quite did its job. Adam sat on the floor with Jasper, the dog's body curled into the narrowest possible shape, as if trying to take up less space in a world that had given him too much pain. The wound at Jasper's shoulder oozed blood, bright against the dark of his fur. Adam pressed the gauze down gently, his hands steady but his heart rattling in his chest. The dog's breath was rough, uneven, each exhale a quiet testament to what he had endured. Jasper didn't growl, didn't shy away. He watched Adam with tired, unblinking eyes, and when Adam's fingers shook, the dog leaned in, the faintest pressure, grounding them both. Adam worked in silence. He'd never been good with words. Even as a boy, he'd said little, learning early that pain was best handled quietly, with a set jaw and hands that knew how to make themselves useful. He thought about his brother's old advice, handed down in the kind of half-joking, half-desperate tone that only siblings could use. If it bleeds, it heals. If it scars, you lived. Samuel's ghost had been close these past days, never speaking, just watching from the edges of thought. He wiped the blood away as best he could, careful not to press too hard on the raw skin beneath Jasper's fur. Every so often, Jasper shivered, more from exhaustion than pain. Adam wrapped the wound, talking softly, not in complete sentences, but in small, gruff murmurs. Almost done. Good boy. Just a bit more. Afterward, Jasper dragged himself to the old blanket Adam had laid near the bed. He circled once, twice, then lowered himself with a long, trembling sigh. Adam sat beside him, back against the wall, knees pulled to his chest. Outside, the rain slackened, the world going quiet and thin as midnight. He listened to Jasper's breathing, the slow settling of bones and fear. In the stillness, Adam let himself be tired. He let his shoulders sag and his head tip back against the plaster. A weight pressed on him, the unspoken guilt of not acting sooner, of failing so many times before. He'd spent years blaming himself for what he couldn't save. His brother, his own sense of purpose. Now this broken dog with a hero's history and a body full of scars. When sleep finally came, it was light and restless. Dreams flickered in fragments, fire crackling through pine, voices shouting orders, smoke burning his eyes, a dog barking somewhere in the chaos. He woke to dawn, a thin, pearly light creeping under the door, the radiator ticking quietly. Jasper was awake too, watching him with solemn, ancient eyes. Adam reached over, brushing the dog's ear, feeling the velvety softness give way to the rough edge of an old bite scar. "You're still here," he whispered, and there was wonder in it, and relief. He made coffee, black and bitter, the way his brother had always liked it. He poured water for Jasper, set a bowl of old roast chicken on the floor. The dog ate slowly, limping on his wounded side, every movement careful. After breakfast, Adam rummaged through an old metal box in his closet, a box full of memories he usually kept locked away. Photographs, faded and curled at the edges, a crumpled letter from Samuel, never sent, a handful of newspaper clippings. He found what he was looking for, a yellowed article from 6 years ago, the headline half erased by time. "Rescue dog saves family, disappears after fire." The grainy photo showed Jasper, years younger, eyes bright, coat gleaming, a firefighter's hand on his neck. Adam ran his thumb over the print. There, under the caption, the name, Jasper. As he held the clipping, the weight of it all seemed to settle over him, a sense that nothing in life is truly lost, just misplaced, waiting for the moment to be found again. He glanced at Jasper, who was watching him with that same careful patience. Adam slid the clipping onto the floor, letting Jasper sniff it. The dog's nose trembled, a soft, mournful sound rising from his chest. A memory coming alive, or maybe just a recognition that stories don't end with fire or with fear. There was a knock at the door, sharp, official. Adam startled, heart jolting. He stood, pulling the door open an inch. On the other side, Officer Kravitz, older, gray at the temples, stood with a file in his hand. "We need to talk, Carlyle. It's about that dog." Adam tensed, instinctively glancing back at Jasper. Kravitz's voice softened, barely above a whisper. "Guy you tangled with last night, the one Jasper knocked down. He's been wanted in 3 counties, animal trafficking mostly. But there's more. Got reports of lost rescue dogs, paperwork matching the mark on your dog's collar." Adam said nothing, but Kravitz pressed the file into his hand. "Take a look. There's a picture in there from years back. Thought you should see it." Adam opened the file. There, under a list of aliases and incident reports, was a photo. Jasper as a puppy, posed beside a rescue truck, the old collar bright red. The same scar, barely healed. Something inside Adam eased, a knot loosening, the first true breath he'd taken in months. He closed the file and turned back to Jasper. The dog's tail thumping once, soft as hope. For the first time, Adam allowed himself to believe in the possibility of rescue, not as an act of heroism, but as the simple, battered willingness to stay, to heal, to forgive. Among the old files, Adam finds a photo of Jasper as a puppy. Proof, at last, that this scarred, silent survivor was once a cherished hero, and now, perhaps, could be again. But with proof comes new questions. How many others were lost? What will the town decide about the dangerous dog in their midst? And most of all, is survival the same as being saved? Rumors in Lebanon didn't die. They drifted and grew, sticky as fog and twice as hard to outrun. By midweek, stories about Jasper had taken root. Some said he was a stray turned wild. Others muttered about the bite marks on the arm of a would-be thief. A few remembered the old news clipping, the fire, the dog who disappeared. But most only saw a threat, a scarred animal with eyes too watchful for comfort. Adam noticed it in the way people looked at him at the grocery store, in the sudden hush that fell when he and Jasper walked Main Street before dawn. Shopkeepers stepped out to sweep their stoops, glancing sideways, their brooms pausing in midair. A mother tugged her son away at the crosswalk. Someone stuck a note under Adam's windshield. "Strays belong in the woods, not here. Don't make us call animal control." That night, at the station, the conversation was no longer whispers. "He's a liability, Adam. If it were up to me, I'd call it in. The county's got a place for dangerous dogs." "He's not dangerous," Adam answered, voice quiet but solid. The room fell silent, the old clock ticking loud above the filing cabinet. Captain Morris cleared his throat, softening just a little. "Maybe he's not, but he's not yours either." After his shift, Adam drove Jasper out of town, headlights threading through tunnels of bare, black branches. The Swatara River, swollen with last week's rain, glimmered silver beneath the bridge. Adam parked by the rail, heart heavy. The world seemed to have shrunk to this. One battered car, one battered man, One battered dog, waiting for a verdict neither could argue. He stepped out into the cold, Jasper at his side. He knelt by the riverbank, pulled Jasper's collar free, a battered strip of red leather with the faded J, the cracked rescue team number, the only proof of a story nobody here wanted to remember. He set it on the ground, next to a torn bag of sandwich rolls, the last of last week's groceries. He opened the car door and waited, his hands shaking, not from fear, but from the old sharp ache of losing what you never really had. Jasper stood still, rain spattering his back, eyes locked on Adam. Adam tried to say something, tried to offer comfort or explanation, but his throat clenched. There are no words, he thought, for the kind of leaving that feels like failure. He turned and walked back to the car, refusing to look over his shoulder, knowing, believing, he had done what was best, or at least what would keep the peace. He slid into the front seat, gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles ached. For a long time, neither man nor dog moved. The rain softened, became a hush on the roof, the only sound in the world. Jasper stood in the glow of the open door, his shape growing smaller in the rearview mirror. Adam waited, staring at the empty passenger seat, the ache in his chest rising like floodwater. He thought about his brother, about the day Samuel had left for good. No warning, just a slammed door and silence. He wondered if Samuel had felt this hollow, this unfinished, when he walked away. Minutes passed, maybe 5, maybe 50. Adam pressed his forehead to the wheel, the engine off, the windows fogging. He counted breaths, old habit, the only way to keep from breaking apart. When he finally looked up, the bridge was empty. He pulled the door closed, turned the key, and eased the car back onto the road, headlights flickering on the slick blacktop. But as he reached the crest of the hill, movement caught his eye in the mirror. A dark shape, limping but determined. Jasper, trotting after the taillights, not running, not barking, only following, step for stubborn step. Adam slowed, pulled over, heart in his throat. He got out, rain soaking his hair and shirt. Jasper stood a few feet away, chest heaving, eyes steady, not pleading. Just present. Adam knelt on the wet grass, held out his hand, not a command, just an offering. Jasper came, slow and silent, and pressed his head against Adam's palm. No one spoke. There was only the river rushing below, the hum of blood in Adam's ears, the knowledge that some bonds refuse to break, no matter how carefully you try to untie them. He gathered Jasper's collar and buckled it back around the dog's thick neck. Jasper licked the scar on Adam's wrist, then settled against his side, the two of them sheltering beneath the bridge's iron skeleton, sharing the warmth of survival. In the half-light, Adam realized that choosing to stay was not a victory, not a promise of safety. It was only the stubborn, small hope that for tonight, neither would walk away. As Adam drove home, Jasper in the back seat, damp and silent. He felt the old ache ease just a little. Somewhere inside he understood. Jasper hadn't needed to be called, hadn't needed to be owned. He had chosen, on his own, to stay. And as the rain let up, Adam realized the next battle wouldn't be about rescue or survival, but about earning a place, one silent day at a time, in a town determined to forget what it owed to mercy. The next days slipped by in pale sunlight and cold wind, the last of autumn clinging to Lebanon like a promise it didn't know how to keep. Adam moved through them as if underwater, his routines slower, his eyes always searching for Jasper's shadow in the corners of town. He didn't bring the dog home again. Not at first. The conversation at the station had made that line too clear. Instead, Jasper made the town his territory, moving along back streets, under the awnings of closed-up stores, circling the square at dawn and dusk. Most people ignored him, wary or indifferent, unwilling to risk the trouble of kindness. But Adam saw the evidence everywhere, signs of a quiet guardian at work. On his morning patrol, he spotted Jasper near the bus stop on Main, sitting under the bench while Mrs. Colson struggled with her groceries. The old woman, nearly blind, had dropped an apple. Jasper nosed it gently toward her, tail thumping once against the pavement, before moving on. A little later, Adam found the shepherd again, crouched by the steps of the community center, letting the Turner twins, shy boys with no friends and a stutter that made them easy targets, bury their faces in his fur while they waited for their mother. Nobody spoke of it, not out loud. But rumors changed shape. "He kept those stray dogs from getting in the trash again," someone said at the diner. "I heard he pulled Bobby from the riverbank. Boy nearly slipped in, but that dog grabbed his backpack and barked until someone came." Adam followed Jasper's trail through these stories, never interfering, never taking credit. He watched from the cruiser, window cracked, one hand on his brother's lighter, the other gripping the steering wheel. He'd learned that some things couldn't be rushed, that healing moved at its own broken, stubborn pace. Jasper still bore the wounds of that rainy night. The limp had grown more pronounced, his gait awkward but determined. He avoided crowds, slipping away when voices grew too loud or hands reached for him too quickly. Only with children and the elderly did he pause, letting their fear or loneliness settle on him like a second skin. It was late one afternoon when the true shift began. Adam was parked near the river, radio turned low, eyes closed, letting the sun warm his face. A commotion rose from the bank, a splash, a child's high cry, the scrape of panic. He jerked upright, heart pounding, and ran toward the sound. Down by the water's edge, a crowd had formed, all eyes fixed on the scene. A boy, Mason Braddock, no more than 7, had slipped from the rocks, his jacket snagged on a half-submerged branch, the current tugging hard at his legs. His father was still halfway down the slope, hampered by mud and his own fear. And there, already in the water, was Jasper, shoulders deep, fighting the pull of the river. He reached the boy, teeth closing gently on Mason's sleeve, and held on as the child scrambled for footing. Jasper's paws slid on the slick stones, his hind leg giving way more than once, but he didn't let go. With a last surge, Mason was on the bank, soaked and crying, but safe. Jasper pulled himself up beside him, chest heaving, water streaming from his coat, the old scar on his shoulder shining red beneath the fading light. For a moment, the town seemed to hold its breath. No one moved. Then Mrs. Braddock rushed forward, wrapping Mason in her arms, and someone let out a shaky cheer. A dozen voices rose at once. "He saved that boy's life. Is that the same dog? Wasn't he supposed to be dangerous?" Adam stood at the edge, uncertain, waiting for the verdict. Jasper, exhausted, limped away from the crowd, stopping only when he reached Adam's feet. He lowered his head, waiting for what would come next. Adam knelt, running his hand through the wet fur, feeling the shudder of effort still running through the shepherd's body. "You did good, buddy," he whispered, not caring who heard. The town watched, and in their eyes something changed, a hesitation, then a softening. Old stories yielded to what stood plainly before them: a wounded dog, choosing again and again to help, to stay, to trust. Later that night, as Adam walked Jasper along a back alley, an old man shuffled out from behind the hardware store. Mr. Helms, whose voice was more gravel than air, eyes sharp despite the years. He leaned on his cane and said, almost to himself, "I seen that dog before. Years ago, out past the state line. He was with a man, older, beard down to here, used to run search and rescue in the forest." Adam stiffened. "You're sure?" The old man nodded, gaze distant. "They'd disappear for days, come back with stories and scars. That dog always found his way home. Maybe he's looking for it again." Adam thanked him, heart pounding with questions. Was Jasper searching for a person, or a place, or just the small mercies of being allowed to stay? He watched Jasper nose through a pile of leaves, tail wagging once, and felt something shift inside. A loosening, an invitation, the faint possibility of belonging. Adam learns that Jasper's past might be tied not just to the fire, but to a mysterious older man, suggesting that the shepherd's history holds more secrets and loyalties than even Adam realized. The town, at last, begins to see not just a stray, but a survivor, a silent witness to what mercy, given time and a second chance, can do. The cold settled in deeper as November crept toward winter, the last of the leaves stripped from the poplars, the river running dark and swollen with rain. Adam felt it in his bones and in Jasper's slower steps, each day a little shorter, each night a little longer. Still, there was a current in town, an undercurrent of rumor and watchfulness that seemed to gather whenever Adam and Jasper passed. That current surged one morning when the past finally caught up. It started with a call at the station, the voice on the line taut with fear. "There's a man out by the old bridge. Says he's looking for his dog. Says he'll take him back by any means." Adam knew, before the description came, that the ghost had returned. The man from the lot. The one who owned nothing but a leash and a grudge. Adam found Jasper pacing by the door, as if he'd heard the voice himself. Together they left. The old patrol car grumbling over potholes, the Swatara River flashing gray through the trees. They parked in silence at the iron bridge, cold wind rattling the railings, sky the color of slate. Jasper's fur bristled as they approached. The familiar sight transformed into a place of reckoning. On the bridge, the man stood waiting, the rope leash curled in his hand, his shoulders hunched against the cold. There was no one else in sight at first, only the hush of water below and the brittle crunch of gravel underfoot. But Adam sensed the eyes. Neighbors watching from porches, kids peering from behind fence posts, the whole town hovering on the edge of the old story. The man's face was gaunt, cheeks hollow, beard grown wild. He stared at Adam, then down at Jasper, and Adam saw the calculation in his eyes. "This dog's mine," the man called out, voice thin as wire. "He was always mine. You think you can just take him?" Adam didn't answer. He glanced at Jasper, who stood still, muscles taut, gaze locked on the man, not with anger, but with something older, more complicated. The crowd grew. Captain Morris, a handful of deputies, Mrs. Colson bundled in her shawl, even the Turner twins with their mother. A brittle quiet hung over the bridge. The man stepped forward, swinging the rope. "Come, boy. Time to go." Jasper didn't move. He stood between Adam and the man, tail still, ears back. The leash dangled, its pull nothing against the weight of memory. The man's jaw clenched. He's trained. He knows the rules. Attack! The word rang hollow, echoing in the ironwork, but Jasper only lowered himself, lying down at the man's feet, head resting on his paws, a gesture not of obedience, but of surrender. Not submission to the old life, but refusal to fight. A refusal to hate. Adam's heart ached as he watched. He remembered all the times he'd chosen anger, all the times he'd believed justice was about who won and who lost. But Jasper, silent and unmoving, showed another way. Sometimes you refuse not out of fear, but out of something like grace. The man's hand shook. He reached for Jasper, but the dog didn't flinch, didn't cower, didn't snarl. He simply remained. The deputies moved in, cautious. No sudden movements. As Adam spoke, his voice steady but low. "You have a warrant, Captain?" Captain Morris nodded, voice soft. "We do. Animal trafficking. Evidence from 3 counties. It's over, Frank." For the first time, the man, Frank, looked beaten. He dropped the leash. It coiled at his feet. Forgotten. Jasper stayed where he was. Adam stepped forward, meeting Frank's gaze. "I'll take him," Adam said. "Not just today. For good." The crowd murmured. But it was Frank who spoke, voice suddenly flat. "You're Samuel Carlyle's brother, aren't you?" Adam stiffened. He hadn't heard his brother's name spoken by a stranger in years. Frank's eyes gleamed with old pain. "Your brother. He was with us the day the fire broke out. Tried to go back for someone. Wouldn't listen. Said no one gets left behind. That dog, your dog, tried to pull him out. But the smoke," he broke off, coughing. "If you want blame, take it out on me. But your brother, he was the brave one. Him and that dog. They don't give up on anyone." A hush settled over the bridge. Even the river seemed to quiet. Adam let the words settle. Raw, aching, but true. The past was not a place to live, but it was a place to learn from. He looked down at Jasper, who rose now, limping to Adam's side, brushing his head against Adam's hand. Frank allowed himself to be led away by the deputies, shoulders sagging, face empty of fight. The town watched, waiting for Adam's anger, his judgment. But Adam only stood there, hand on Jasper's scarred neck, eyes wet but clear. He offered no vengeance. Only the knowledge that forgiveness is sometimes the bravest act, and sometimes all that's left. He spoke once to the wind, to his brother, to the old ghosts. "We're still here. We keep going." The river moved beneath the bridge, carrying away what it could, leaving only what mattered most. The choice to stay, to forgive, to begin again, even when the past refuses to let go. As Frank is led away, he reveals a secret about Adam's brother, that Samuel had been with Jasper on the day of the fire, refusing to abandon anyone, trying to save even the ones the world had already given up on. For Adam, it is a wound and a gift, proof that courage and kindness can outlive even the worst endings. And now, with Jasper by his side, Adam must decide what he'll do with this legacy of mercy. Lebanon's winter arrived not in a single storm, but in slow breaths. Frost blooming on window panes, the hush of snow settling into gutters and alleys. Adam found himself walking more in those days, tracing the same worn paths with Jasper at his side, both of them limping a little, both marked by what they had survived. The town's judgment faded, replaced by a new rhythm, the steady acceptance of two figures wandering together in the quiet. A man with his hands in his pockets, a German shepherd with a pale scar shining through his thick winter coat. No one spoke much, but now and then someone left a biscuit on the police station steps or offered a nod at the diner door. Old wounds didn't vanish. They simply learned to share space with something softer. Adam spent more evenings at home now, the radiator humming, the air thick with the scent of wet dog and black coffee. Jasper sprawled beside the front door, eyes tracking every shadow on the porch, tail thumping at the sound of Adam's footsteps. Some nights, Adam would pull out his brother's old letter, the one he'd kept folded in his wallet for years. He read it aloud once, just once, voice breaking but steady. "You can't save everyone, little brother, but you can be the one who stays. Sometimes that's enough." He folded the letter back, running his thumb over the creased edge, feeling something loosen inside. Life grew quieter. The phone at the station rang less, and when it did, it was often a neighbor reporting a stray calf or a mailbox knocked down by the plow. Adam handled these calls with a patience he didn't know he had. The lessons of loss settling into kindness, the way snow settles into silence. Jasper healed slowly. The limp never quite left, and sometimes, on cold mornings, Adam would kneel and rub the old wound at the dog's shoulder, feeling the faint tremor of pain. But Jasper didn't shy away. He'd rest his head on Adam's knee, brown eyes shining, content simply to exist in the warmth of the moment. There were visitors now and then, children from the school, come to ask about the hero dog, their hand tentative but eager. Adam would let them pet Jasper, explaining quietly that courage sometimes looks like scars and that not every hero wears a shiny coat. One afternoon, a teacher brought a class to the bridge pontoon. They stood in a circle as Adam talked about rescue and patience and the way animals and people learn to trust again, slowly, with setbacks and with hope. On Sunday mornings, Adam and Jasper walked the river path, the church bells distant, the world cold but not unfriendly. They paused by the iron bridge where the river moved beneath them, relentless, unchanged. Sometimes Adam talked to his brother, words drifting on breath, never expecting an answer. Sometimes he spoke to Jasper, or to the silence, or to the old ghosts he no longer feared. He noticed things he'd missed before, the way sunlight warmed the porch, the way Jasper would pause to sniff a certain spot in the grass, as if remembering a kindness buried there. He noticed how people stopped crossing the street to avoid them, how neighbors waved, how someone hung a handmade ornament, two figures carved in wood, a man and a dog, on the police station Christmas tree. Late in December, Adam received a letter from the county. Jasper's ownership had been transferred, official and final. Adam read the document at the kitchen table, the edges trembling in his hands. He looked at Jasper, who only blinked, unconcerned by paperwork, loyal as ever. That night, Adam sat on the stoop, Jasper pressed close, both of them watching the world go blue in the twilight. He ran his fingers along the dog's collar, no longer just a battered strip of leather, but a new tag, freshly engraved, Jasper Carlyle, Guardian. He let the silence linger, the river whispering below, the town's lights flickering on one by one. Jasper leaned in, licking the scar on Adam's wrist, a gesture that held everything words could not. Inside, the house was warm, the air thick with the scent of something baking, a neighbor's kindness left at the door. Outside, the Swatara River kept moving, slow and tireless, a heartbeat beneath the town. Adam understood, finally, what it meant to stay. Not as an act of bravery or defiance, but as a quiet promise, to witness, to heal, to belong. The story was not about miracles or victories. It was about scars, how they changed shape in the light, how they softened when met with patience, how two survivors, dog and man, could find home not by erasing the past, but by choosing every day not to leave. And if anyone asked, on cold mornings or long nights, or the lonely hours between, Adam would answer with a gentle hand, a steady gaze, and the company of a dog who had learned, against all odds, that staying is its own kind of redemption. On a quiet winter evening, Adam officially adopted Jasper, and together they became a fixture in Lebanon, a living reminder that kindness needs no announcement, and that peace sometimes arrives, not with a roar, but with the simple act of choosing to stay. The river ran on, and so did they, two souls marked but not defeated, belonging at last to each other and to the quiet heart of their town. Sometimes, healing isn't about grand gestures or erasing the scars we carry. It's the quiet choice to stay, with another, or simply with ourselves, when it would be easier to run. Adam and Jasper never set out to be heroes. They only learned, through pain and patience, that kindness can make a home out of the loneliest places, and that trust is built not in words, but in everyday acts of mercy. If you believe that forgiveness and loyalty still matter in this world, or if you've ever found hope in the silent company of another soul, let us know, type Amen, or share your own story in the comments. Has a person or an animal helped you heal, even in small, unexpected ways? We invite you to share a memory, a lesson, or simply a word of comfort below. Who knows? Your story might be the hope someone else is waiting for tonight.